Welcome to Questions from the Closet. I'm Charlie Bird.
And I'm Ben Shalati. Each episode, we discuss a question that we commonly get asked as LGBTQ plus Latter-day Saints.
We're not trying to answer this question or come to a consensus, but simply sharing our perspectives. Today's question is, how can I support friends who make different decisions?
So, Charlie and I are not terribly diverse, and we share many opinions and life experiences. For example, we both love roller coasters.
However, there are some pretty big differences. For example, I get so sick when I'm on roller coasters and Ben doesn't.
No, you get motion sickness?
Yeah, I do, which is really surprising. I really love heights. I love thrill. I love that, I flip. I love that lurch in the stomach. But I went to Six Flags a few years ago with my cousin, and I was so sick. I ended up climbing up this I don't know what, this concrete column, and I was laying on the top, and this worker was sweeping, and she was like, "You okay, hun?" And I was like, "No, I'm just going to stay here for a while." And she was like, "Call if you need anything." And she just kept sweeping.
Oh, that's so lovely. It's very nice of her.
She was nice. There was one ride that I didn't get sick on, though, that everyone else got sick on it. Because I don't know what it's called, but it just you go and it just makes you do backflips in your seat the whole time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was so good at that
the
one.
The zipper?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I was like, oh, I know how to do a backflip.
Yeah,
that doesn't make me sick.
I don't experience motion sickness except for Mission Space at Epcot. It was terrible.
What about on a boat?
No.
I can
read in a car. I just don't get motion sickness.
You read in a car?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I don't get motion sickness usually. I'm wearing a Disneyland shirt. The friends that Disney together stay together because we're talking about friendship. I figured it was a good shirt to wear.
I hope we never go to Disney together because I want to have a really dramatic and public falling out with you.
Great.
It's a joke, everyone.
Maybe. Well, I guess we'll see. Great. Well, we would like to provide a variety of voices and perspectives. So today we're joined by Robert Jaramillo.
Hey, guys.
All right. So, Robert, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. So, Rob Jaramillo, I live here in Provo, Utah, and I have for many years.
I feel like a lot of our guests are from Provo recently. It's kind of fun.
It's a great place to be from.
Crazy
nice. We live here.
Crazy that the guests are from where we live.
I'm 46. I have 7 children with the amazing Darlena Rasmussen Jaramillo. She's a pretty incredible person. And I work in the regional compliance department at Nu Skin in downtown Provo.
So I don't know what Nu Skin does. I just know it's an MLM and they make makeup or something.
Yeah, it's personal care products and also nutritional supplements like vitamins and those kinds of things.
Is this region compliant?
We sure try to keep it that way. Yeah. It's my region, so it better be. No, in my job, we mostly are making sure that we are following our own rules so we don't do dumb stuff.
Great.
Cool.
Sounds amazing. And what's your relationship to the LGBTQ community?
I'm gay.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Well, just tell us a little bit about your story.
Like many other queer people, I knew that there was something about me that I was pretty embarrassed about for a really long time, from preteens on. And I just always tried to push it off. I was really embarrassed, and I was pretty sure I was a pretty disgusting person because of things that I felt that were different than other people. And I just sort of pushed through. I never was very connected to sports because I was constantly trying to avoid locker rooms. I was afraid that I might have a thought and be a terrible person because I did. Mm-hmm. And so, like lots of gay people, I found my friends in the arts and those kinds of things. But I got old enough to serve a mission, and I was excited about that. I was pretty sure that if I'd go out and just be faithful enough, and I was a really good missionary.
I believe it.
I would be fixed, right? And I wasn't, of course. So I just needed to keep pushing on, keep trying. And this is late 90s, so 1997. And the next thing a good priesthood holder does is gets married and has kids, right? Yeah. That was the only acceptable path.
And Robert, you're 43, you said?
46.
46, okay.
Yeah. And so that's what I did. And I mentioned before that Darlena is incredible. She really is. She's just such an amazing person. And a very patient person. I didn't know it till many, many years afterwards, but she had a pretty good idea that I was gay before I realized I was gay. Mm-hmm. And so we've had a happy life, and we have 7 children. Our oldest, Brendan, would be 23 this year. Our youngest turns 16 in just a few days. So
they're all pretty close in age.
they are. Two of our sons came to us through foster care, and they fit kind of in the mix. They were just younger and just older, and so it seems like we have a lot of kids in a short space, and we do. But yeah, they're fantastic, and most of them live around here. I'll maybe mention a little bit later on. Brendan passed away a year and a half ago. He had bone cancer that was diagnosed when he was a missionary.
Wow.
And he came home and had quite a fight, and he had to have his leg amputated. It was pretty heavy.
I'm so sorry.
Thanks.
That's so heavy.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just happens in life. You hope you're prepared when something like that comes along.
How's your family?
Pretty traumatized.
Ugh.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff to figure out, and those kids, I just can't imagine. Like it's so hard for us, but to try to even articulate what they're feeling was really tough. Mm-hmm. So, that was 2018 that he was going through all of that stuff. 2019 was great. 2020 was awesome. And he went in just for a regular checkup, not because he was sick or anything. And they said, "Oh, you have these huge tumors that have grown in the middle of your chest.
Oh my gosh.
One's pushing on your heart, and they're probably inoperable. We're sorry." And he died 5 weeks later.
Holy moly.
Yeah. And so it just really, really caught us off guard. And there'd been enough stuff just raising those kids and everything, where I think we all had enough stress in our life, and that came along, and it just kind of pushed some of us into a really weird place, and we had to figure stuff out. During all of this time, I was serving in various church leadership capacities. Pretty much my children's whole childhoods. So 14 years in a row, I served in church leadership capacities, and it kept me pretty busy. Sometimes in good ways, sometimes not great ways. But what it did do is let me not focus on my stuff. Mm-hmm. I had to spend most of that time thinking about other people and their problems. And so I could kind of hide, but I didn't want to deal with.
Yeah, so some people might say like you were in denial, that maybe you weren't facing reality. How would you say, like was that a good time when you were focusing on other people instead of like being introspective? Like what was that like for you?
It depended on the moment. I feel good in that space. I feel like I can help people. I think I'm a good listener. And over that much time, I learned how to be a good helper, I think. So it was mostly positive, but sometimes the secret me would come like pushing in. Sometimes things were triggering when I would be in various interviews and those kinds of things, sitting in various councils, what have you. Things were hard to listen to, and it would pop up stuff in me, and I just push it back down the best I could. Mm. And so, yeah, that was a lot of years of that. And I'm thankful for it, because my kids got to grow up with a dad not completely figured out, right? Like if I'm gay and I'm just it's all about me, and it wasn't. I got to help them as well. And so when Brendan passed away, so he was told that his cancer was back. At that time, I just said, I need to be released from my calling. I promised myself I would never, ever do that, but I just needed to be a full-time dad and husband. And we got to have that time with him.
And that's so understandable.
Yeah, it was absolutely necessary. And, in 2018, when he was going through the treatments, we just muscled through, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but we needed to deal with some stuff. And I had been out-ish for about a year and a half when all that happened. Not super public about it, but I was starting to get that way.
So you were a church leader coming out to people?
Yeah.
So when could I just for like my own personal timeline, and I guess for anyone listening, you said that your wife knew and would have admitted it before you did to yourself. How much longer was that before you started telling other people? So
our marriage is 24 years, just a little over 24 years. I told her when we'd been married for about 10.
Okay.
And she was the first person I ever told. I hadn't told a church leader. I hadn't told a therapist.
Ooh, what? All right, can we backtrack?
Yeah,
I want to know what that was like.
Well, we had decided that we wanted to do foster care. And so we took the preparation classes, and they try to scare the heck out of you. And rightfully so. It's hard. It's really, really hard. But on one class one night, they told us, before you try to help other people with their stuff, you need to take care of your own demons. And that really kind of hit both of us. And we went for a long ride that evening and just talked about things we never had before, never talked with any other person about before. And it was good, but all of a sudden I just knew. We talk sometimes about you just know when you need to come out.
Yeah.
And this was the time. Darlena was the only person I ever could have done this with. And so I told her, I kind of am attracted to men. And her response was, oh, okay.
and like, where did you come from, Darlena?
Did you hear what I said? And she did. And it just wasn't a thing. Like we didn't talk about it for years after that.
Sheesh.
I'll spare you all the details about coming out of the closet. I'll tell you another day. But it was very uncomfortable when I was sort of thrown out of the closet. I was serving in a church leadership capacity, and it was pretty embarrassing, of course, because just Darlena, that was the only person I had told, and suddenly a lot of people knew.
Wow.
And I wasn't very happy about that. I was pretty sure my life was over, that my family was just going to be smeared, and that it was going to be embarrassing to the church. And it wasn't. And the leaders that I talked with were very kind and very understanding. One of my church leaders asked me a couple of questions, and he said, well, it doesn't bother me at all. I bet it's made you a better minister over the years, hasn't it? And
oh, that's so kind.
Yeah. And yeah, it has made me a better minister over the years, but I would have never expected that coming out of a church leader's mouth. But he was serious about it, and all of the leaders that I've talked to have been very kind. So Brendan passed away. Suddenly all of the church callings are gone, and it's just this ringing silence.
May I ask you just a quick question about your son? You know, this is like a beautiful, vulnerable thing you're sharing. What would you like people to say when you talk about your son, your son's passing? Like, what would be a helpful thing for you to hear?
You know, it's funny because the grief cycle is so weird. Sometimes it's just so intense, and sometimes you can kind of deal with it. The best thing that anybody ever said to me, it was in the week or two after Brendan passed away. I had a friend that said, Rob, I know there is nothing I can say that will make this better, but I will sit in the dark and cry with you for as long as you need. And that's it. Don't try to have solutions. Don't try to cheer people up. We believe in mourning with those that mourn, right? Not to cheer them up. And that comes. The Lord will cheer them up. But if they have people who they can trust, you'll just sit with them and cry. Just sit in silence even. It's amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure.
So it kind of sounds like this like new family dynamic, and this like tragedy put you in a place where you had more time to think.
Yeah, we had to. But like it was this silence, and everything that was going on would have just eaten us up if we didn't figure out how to move forward some way, somehow. And so I'd been mostly out for a little while. We have a couple of children who are queer, and I'm not going to dive into a bunch of those details, but Darlene's a mama bear, and she wanted to hang a pride flag at our house. And I had talked to some church leaders, and they suggested I not do that while I was serving in leadership capacities. But the moment I was released, a pride flag went up on our front porch. And so we tried to become good allies and advocates while we were wrestling with things inside.
Can I pause you? And maybe this is like too sensitive of a topic, but what was it like to hear from like a church leader counseling you to not hang up a pride flag in support of your children?
It was very hard. And to be fair, I don't think I even mentioned to them that it was to support my children. I just wanted to be out. I wanted there to be no secrets, and I wanted them to be aware.
So this person knew.
Yeah. So
I'm guessing it was like someone higher.
Yeah, it was, and that meeting was actually really interesting because they knew that I was gay, and I was telling them that I wanted to be out, and they were so kind. They sat with me for like 2 hours and just talked and asked questions and tried to understand. And at the end of the conversation, they said, well, while you're serving in this capacity, if you were serving in another thing in your ward or something, we'd say do whatever you want. But in this capacity, you probably just need to not alienate people in your flock. And so they said, they asked that I not put a label on myself. That was pretty tough because I had finally arrived at gay. That was the thing I was comfortable with. And they suggested I not label myself. And anyway, they were really honestly kind. But yeah, there were some frustrating things with that.
I'm frustrated for you.
That'd be tough to be explicitly told, like, you can't do this when it feels like the thing that you want to do.
Yeah. I had a little, not a scuffle, but a disagreement at the beginning because I told one leader, I'm just going to be out. And he said, I've got your back. That's great. And then called me back a couple of hours later and said, can we talk about this a little bit more? Mm-hmm. And I said, we can talk about it, but I was calling to make you aware this is what I'm going to do. I wasn't asking for permission. Mm-hmm. And he didn't particularly like that. And so.
Well, and for me, it's sad that it's viewed as something that alienates people in the flock. Like you said, like how just being who you are and calling it what it is makes other people so uncomfortable that they don't trust you as their leader. Yeah. That's really sad to me.
And there's some truth to it, right? Like our culture,
yeah, that is what happens. It just sucks.
It does. Because it feels like it would be a great opportunity for those people to learn some things, right?
Right.
Yeah, but their comfort is placed ahead of yours.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that was quite the adventure. And so we're just figuring out us. And honestly, so I hadn't thought about, I'm going to tell you this. So I had recommended on my Facebook page several times that people listen to Questions for the Closet.
I'm like, thank you.
This is nice. I'm like, this is huge and it makes such a difference. And so a guy who had lived in our stake a couple of years before had moved away to go to law school. And he reached out to me. I think we were connected on Facebook, but we hardly knew each other. And he just said, hey, thank you for telling me about Questions from the Closet. And I said, oh, do you love it like I do? And he said, yeah, it gave me the courage to come out to my wife last week.
Oh, wow.
And if you're listening, I hope you're doing okay. And I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, I was so excited. And he hadn't told anybody. Like, I think he had a sister that was aware, and then he had told his wife. And he just wanted to talk. So we did that weekend. We had a Facebook conversation for a couple of hours, and I shared with him some of my experience, and he shared with me his. And that became kind of a neat friendship, even though it was long distance, and we didn't really make that friendship too closely when we were together. So anyway, he would ask me questions periodically. And one evening I had come back from therapy, I think it was my weekly therapy appointment. And he sent me a text message and he said, are you ever worried that your marriage isn't going to make it? Mm-hmm. And that really shocked me. Like, it was so uncomfortable. Darlena and I decided when we got married that the D word was a swear word. We were never going to say the word divorce. And I wanted to give him an answer, but I felt so weird about it. And so I asked Darlena, I said, sweetheart, you want to help me try to take a stab at this? And she said, sure. Are you ever worried that your marriage isn't going to make it? I went, what are we talking about? And she said, no, really. Are you ever worried that our marriage isn't going to make it? And that turned into like a 2 or 3 hour conversation where we laughed and cried. And it was really beautiful. It wasn't scary. And we realized we needed to take some time to figure us out that we had never done. And so we decided we were going to take the next couple of months and think about it ourselves. We check in with each other every couple of weeks. And we did that. And at the end of a couple of months, we decided that divorce was probably the right thing for us. And we weren't falling apart. This just felt like this was the right thing for us and our family. And so we separated into different homes, 1.5 miles away from each other. I mean, still saw and still see each other very, very often. But we had been separated for almost a year. And then around the holidays, we decided, yeah, let's move forward with that. And
Merry Christmas.
maybe after Christmas.
Sorry.
But it's funny because it hasn't felt tragic to us. Like, we've cried and we've had our own emotional things trying to work through, like, what is this going to be like? And I don't want to be divorced from my best friend. But we've really spent time trying to prayerfully and carefully consider this. And we did it over a year's time.
So this is pretty recent, like coming out, being released from this calling and getting divorced is like within like a year and a half.
So I was thrown out in middle of 2017. Our son came home from his mission the end of 2017, and then 2018, 2019, we were just figuring stuff out. So it was early 2020 when I said, I just really want to be all the way out.
And when I initially invited you to be on the podcast, I wasn't aware of this. This is
any of it.
I had heard some things, but I'd heard that there was some talk, but I didn't know that you guys were actually divorcing.
Yeah. So a lot of people didn't, and we had told a few people, family and some close friends at the beginning, that that's what we were thinking of, and there was suddenly a lot of advice that we didn't like very much. We decided that wasn't very helpful for us, for other people to be giving us
the way in.
Yeah. And so we just said, we're not going to talk to anybody about it. We're going to figure it out ourselves.
Which is such a mature thing to do.
That is mature.
It was really important for us. And so I actually think that there are quite a few people that think we've been divorced for a while, since we don't live in the same house.
Well, the cat's out of the bag.
It is out of the bag.
And we probably should have hung out more often. That's probably the problem.
Well, yeah. So we just decided, it's time for us to move forward. That being separate actually has been a good way for both of us to thrive separately. And it really has been a positive thing. So we moved forward. The divorce was finalized very, very recently. And now we're charging ahead in our lives. We hope to be always very, very close. Our children are very understanding about everything that's going on, from me coming out to us letting them know we were going to divorce. And part of that is that I'm going to be gay. I am going to go pursue a relationship. I don't know what that looks like, because we talk about gay adolescence sometimes. I feel like a stupid 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm. It's weird, huh?
It's so weird.
It happened to me. I was 25, but you're
46.
Yeah, 46, yeah.
It's
and suddenly 14, right?
Yeah, wow. Well, congratulations. That's like scary and exciting, and
it is.
Might feel weird.
I've always been worried that I was going to hurt somebody else's testimony, or I'd be accidentally leading somebody astray. In therapy, I learned that people have to make their own decisions, right? I'm not responsible for their decisions necessarily, but I've tried to be really soft and really careful and not do things to drive a wedge for anybody.
Well, I've noticed that the whole time you've been talking about this, you've had like a very forgiving tone. And it's just really impressive. It's really refreshing, especially because, I mean, like, anger is the secondary emotion oftentimes, and it's the easiest one. And I feel like within this space, there's a lot of anger and resentment. It's just a plethora. And it's really refreshing to see somebody who's worked through that and is trying to get to the core of your experience and what you've been feeling, and not, I love it.
It's taken a lot of time and very deliberate effort, because I was a very mad person when our son died.
Yeah.
I was mad at God. I was mad at everyone. I was mad at everything I could be mad at. And it was kind of easy for me to sort of scapegoat. It's that person's fault. It's heaven's fault, whatever. And that doesn't help anything. It certainly didn't help me. And it wasn't really making a difference to very many other people.
Yeah. And yet it feels like a natural part of the process to have those feelings and those emotions.
It is. Yeah. We should never tell somebody to not be mad, right? When they're going through whatever their grief is about, whatever their loss is. But yeah, I feel that way. I'm really trying to be forgiving, and maybe it's a little selfish, but it's better for me. Like, it's better for me to try to be soft and give people the benefit of the doubt, even if things feel hurtful sometimes. And so, just kind of feeling like I was drowning sometimes. I wasn't sure what to do. You have had, I'm going to mention a couple of people by name because I asked them if I could.
Call them out. Yeah. I'm ready. I'm really intrigued now.
And so now we can kind of pivot to like the conversation about friendship.
Question yet.
Yes. And it fits in really well because these guys saved me. You've had Jeff Case on.
Oh yeah, love Jeff.
Twice.
Jeff's amazing. He's got so many insights. Yeah. So Jeff Case, Alec Barrow, Michael Griffin. Michael honestly is one of my very, very best friends on the planet. He was the first gay person that knew that I was a gay person.
Oh, wow.
And so kind of a special friendship there. And he's been my friend long enough that he kind of walked through our son's sickness and stuff with us. He was there the whole day when my son passed away.
Oh, wow.
he's just my dear friend, and so that's really important to me. I met Jeff Case because I got really brave. I watched the Voices for Hope videos, and he and Sarah were on there, and their stories were so much like ours that I just reached out to this person that I didn't know at all, and he was so sweet and so warm and inviting, and he became my friend. He invited me to the North Star Conference, and he invited me to go on a hike one time with a bunch of other gay guys, which seemed just so foreign. I can actually go hang out with a bunch of gay people on purpose and
see nature.
Yeah. And it was great. It was so much fun. And some of those guys we've kind of stuck together. I think it's a group of 8 of us, and we just are close as a group and individually too. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. And so Robert, Jeff and Alec are married to women. As far as I know, they have no plans. They have plans to stay in those marriages, and you're leaving your marriage or have left your marriage. How did you guys work that out where you're making choices different than they are?
It's really interesting because there's a lot of differences among us, like everything from, history to education to how long we've been out. Some of them have been out for a pretty long time, and some of us not for very long at all. It feels like each one of us have needed to be saved by the group. And just in talking to the 3, asking them if I could use their names here, it's been life-saving for each of us. Individually, we've had our times where if it wasn't for this group, I'm not sure we'd be around. And it's just been fantastic because we are so different. I mean, Alec teaches seminary, right? Yeah. And he's in, and he has all of these, but he knows that he's dealing with stuff too. These are gay men that are trying to figure out their own lives. And so they have these great insights. Like Alec can take the gospel and show me pieces of it that help some things make sense where it was just frustrating before. And it's just because that's the way his brain works. And Jeff's so smart, and he's been teaching everybody about mixed orientation marriages and being gay for a long time. That I feel like he's a mentor, but he's a dear friend. When Brendan passed away, Jeff was there to make sure that we were okay. And it was about, I guess it was like 3 weeks later, and Jeff just said, "You're coming with me on a Saturday morning." And we went up Provo Canyon, and we walked on the trail for 6 or 7 miles just so we could talk. And we laughed and cried, and it was fantastic. And Alec has become my dear friend. He takes me to the movies fairly often. And sometimes we go as a group, but sometimes it's just us. And I've loved it because they're hard things, as you both know, and sometimes things that come at you that you weren't expecting. And sometimes this group have experienced that before, and they can say, well, this is how I walked through that, or you might think about this. And it just helps things to not be so heavy sometimes. I have a tremendous support system. I have so many people that care about me. People that come and take me to lunch, and people who live out of state and just check in, just thinking about you and call me up. Most of them are straight. And I feel so thankful for them because it's a great support system. But there's something special about this little group of gay guys.
Yeah. May I interject and ask a question?
Sure.
I think some people might say, well, you're making a choice that's different, therefore they might be worried that you're judging them, or they're judging you, or maybe your choice is an affront on their life choices. How do you guys navigate that? Like,
among our little group?
Mm-hmm.
So people are worried about that. I think it's particularly a challenge sometimes for Alec because, he lives amongst the families that he teaches. He teaches at a high school, and all of his students live around him and their parents, and so they have opinions on what Brother Barrow should be like. And when his family came out very openly, he had some things to kind of work through, and so there are a lot of expectations when we go and do something together as a group. Just recently, Jeff and Alec and I went to a show together, and one of Alec's students came and said, "Brother Barrow, I didn't know that you would be here," and then Michael Griffin is a professor at BYU, right? And he's made commitments that he's going to be honor the honor code, and he's gay, and he wants to.
We know it well.
Yeah, and he wants to be a fully functioning person and have a family someday and those things. And so it's weird waters to tread sometimes. I don't know what that's like to be a professor at BYU who's single and trying to navigate that stuff.
Yeah. So how do you navigate that? How do you say?
How do you not get jealous of somebody else's life path?
Exactly. Or feel uncomfortable that someone's making a choice that you're not making?
I think we've been through enough stuff in our lives that we just throw that stuff at each other. Like this is what I'm doing, and that's really strange. There's a guy in our group that he really made a huge turn in his life and made some really different decisions than what most of the group does. And he kind of felt embarrassed a little bit. He's like, I don't know if anybody will like me, and are they going to be embarrassed? And we're not, and nobody has been. We don't like talk about each other behind our backs. Unless it's to support, like, oh, that person's really having a hard time. We just need to throw our arms open for them. So, yeah, there isn't like infighting. I know that I have enough gay friends that I know it can be a little dramatic sometimes. But this group isn't too much, and.
Yeah, I think that comes from a place of like mutual respect. Like I remember Jeff saying once, when he was on Richard Osser's podcast, someone asked him, or Richard asked him, what was like when such and such a couple got divorced? Did that make you question your marriage? He said, well, we didn't get married because they got married, so we're not going to get divorced because they got divorced. And I just love that, like, owning decisions. And when you own your decisions, then you can respect the decisions that people make that are different. Like one of my dear friends, he has left the church, and we'll talk about that. And then he'll turn around and ask me like what I'm up to, and I'll talk about like, well, I spoke at this fireside, and I did this thing, and I had this great time at church. And he just like respects me and is genuinely curious about my life. And so we can talk about this thing that like to me is like wonderful and beautiful, and to him is like really painful. And we just like respect each other and where we're at. And I remember one time he asked me, I don't remember what the topic of conversation was, but we started talking about the priesthood, and he was like, I'm not sure I've ever like I gave blessings, but I didn't feel anything. And then I just started talking about how like experiences I'd had where I had felt something, like I had felt the power of God through these priesthood ordinances. And I remember him tearing up and just like saying, thank you for sharing such beautiful experiences with me. And then he didn't make a different choice, but he was willing to like listen to my beautiful sacred experiences.
It seems like in the gay LDS space, there's almost like, there's always been like, what do I do? Like, who's the person who's doing it the right way so I can do it like that? And then you actually look at it, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things and like finding happiness or peace or healing in different aspects of their lives. And on top of that, there's also this like shift because people change their minds and like get new information and like adjust their life decisions. And for a lot of people, it can be like really invalidating and almost threatening. I think like if you're doing that, it's a threat to what I feel is right for me. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you ever feel that?
I do feel it with other people, not so much with this group.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it's hard to describe, but we just throw everything out on the table. And there are things like that it seems like I bet Michael could feel pretty in a weird place sometimes because he's the one single guy in the whole group. Mm-hmm. And most of these guys have been in mixed orientation marriages for a long time, and some super tight, and some things are a little rough in some of their marriages. But I don't know, the people whose marriages are super solid aren't not acting like they're upset at the people who are their marriages are on the way out, and the people whose marriages are on the way out aren't saying, well, maybe I could have held on a little longer or whatever.
Well, I think that calls back to what you were saying, Ben, about like having confidence in your decisions, which can be really hard to do, especially if you feel unsure about the decision. It could be really invalidating and feel threatening if somebody else is doing something different.
Yeah.
But I also think one thing you touched on, and I don't want to like make this a thing if it wasn't for this person, but you mentioned your friend who started kind of going down a different life path and making different choices and was really worried about being judged and almost like projected that rejection, and in his mind was thinking, oh my gosh, they're judging me for this. But in reality, it sounds like you weren't.
Yeah. And
so that can be like, I feel myself doing that sometimes, and then I have to check myself and be like, actually, why would I just expect my friends to reject me or expect my friends to be jealous of what I'm doing. And my friends like aren't actually like that. So I think that's a way I kind of check myself too, and just like reality, nope, that's just anxiety, that's just fear. And that's not real.
And sometimes there are acquaintances, I guess, whether they're straight or gay, that aren't as pleasant about our choices.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But those don't seem to be the people that come into our circle and bear us up very
How do you let that not matter? You get this a lot.
Yeah.
I do too, but like,
you know, I mean, sometimes to be honest, it really hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does hurt. I need to be better at that.
It's painful when people like have really strong opinions about your life that are negative. And that hurts. And I wouldn't say that it doesn't hurt. But at the same time, like when I take a step back and I like think about my choices, like these are the choices I'm actively making, and I'm going to continue making them because they're the right ones for me.
Why do you think people have such strong opinions about your life?
I think probably because my choices might look like I'm invalidating their choices.
Yeah.
Like let's say, Robert, you were to say, you know, there's no way a person could be happy single. Like no one can thrive single. I have to be in a relationship with a man to be happy. I'm like, actually, life is good for Ben. You know, and so I would never want to say like this is the way you have to live, and I don't. But I could see someone saying like, if that's the narrative, like I have to be in a relationship to be happy, and then I'm not. That I feel like that could maybe
and maybe for that person it's true. And so I feel like if we're like recognizing and honoring people's individuality and diversity and agency, like maybe there are like maybe somebody couldn't be happy in your life, and that's fine.
Totally.
Like, it's not like lesser. But another thing I'm thinking of is how like all of us have had different experiences with church leaders and church and God and family and support system and coming out and timelines, and so we try to prescribe like one, like, oh, this is how to come out, this is how to do it, this is how to feel about church leaders, this is how to reconcile it all. But it really doesn't work that way all the time, because there's so much like baggage or past experience or good experience that you're bringing into this. And it just gets really messy when we're like, actually it's this way. And it's not, you know?
Yeah. Definitely.
Like, I don't know what it's like to, like, I came out to my mom and she said, I love you. I want to be involved in your life, whatever that looks like. I'll support you. And then like somebody else could have had a horrible experience with their mom, and we're going to have different views on coming out and family. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Robert, I've got a maybe a triggering question.
Okay.
So some people might say, you know, if you're going to be in a same-sex relationship, some people might consider that sinful. And so these friends of yours, how would they respond to someone saying, well, are you condoning Robert's sins by being his friend and being part of this experience for him?
So I think we just get a little caught up in that idea that what if we condone something that's problematic, that's going to hurt somebody, it's going to let them hurt somebody else, and it just doesn't matter, right? Like our condoning someone's actions, it doesn't make a difference. It might make somebody feel bad. It doesn't necessarily go the other direction. It feels like it's trying to steer people in a direction that's comfortable for me, right? Like if I'm saying I don't condone that, it's because it's uncomfortable for me, and I'm trying to make you do something that will get back into my comfort zone. And so people, like fellow imperfect human beings, being worried about condoning each other, it just doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah. And I remember like I've had a number of friends where I was like talking through things like, I don't feel like I have a place in the church. Like, what if I date this person? And they're just like, Ben, we trust you. Like, we want to be part of your life. And having that trust from people, like having them honor my agency, has really given me the freedom to say, okay, where am I going to be? What am I going to do? Because honestly, no matter what they said, I was going to do what I wanted to do anyway. Yeah. But I knew that if they were going to be with me, then I wouldn't have to feel like trapped, like I had to make a decision. I could take a step back and make the decision that I wanted to make.
So I'm trying to figure out how I feel, because like I almost want to like push back against something you were saying, in that like it doesn't matter. And I think maybe where I'm coming from, like I guess my thoughts are that like teaching true principles matters. And like I guess like that's even a Joseph Smith quote, right? Like, teach true principles and let them govern themselves. So I guess that's where I'm getting caught up, because it kind of sounds like, oh, it doesn't matter what anyone does. But I do think there's like truth, and there's like Christ, and there's like covenants and ways that we learn and grow, and like being the type of person that celebrates that or honors that or like encourages that. Like I want to be that kind of person that brings people to Christ. But I think when we get into the space of it's like, I want to show love and acceptance, but I don't want to show too much love or acceptance, because then if we're worried about if we're loving somebody so much that they're going to make bad decisions, that seems like, to me, it doesn't seem like a judgment call that I can make. And maybe that's what you're saying.
Can I just share a thought?
Yeah.
So this is how it's worked in my life. One principle I really believe is people are most likely to like figure out the answers on their own. So like I don't usually need to be told what to do. People seem to like talk to me, ask me questions, and I figure things out. And so when I have friends who are making choices that might make me uncomfortable or that I might disagree with, I talk to them and I ask them questions. I reflect back what they're saying, and I feel like that'll help them figure things out on their own. And then if I really feel like there's something more I need to add, I say, is it okay if I share my perspective? Like I ask for their consent, and then as lovingly and as kindly as I can, I say, well, this is how I'm viewing the situation. And, I don't always do that perfectly, but that's what I try and do.
I like that.
And that way, then I can share what I'm saying. I'm not saying, you're wrong, you're a sinner. I'm saying, well, this is my perspective of the choices you're making. And then we can continue talking about it in a respectful way.
Yeah, because I feel like when you're giving unsolicited advice to someone, all that's going to do is damage the relationship.
Yeah, because if someone walked up to you and said, Robert, you're making bad choices.
You'd be like, cool, thanks. Get away from me.
Yeah, I'm going to go talk to that other friend over there. But if someone could like help me understand, like, why are you making these choices? Where is this coming from? And then once they like really understand your perspective, then say, is it okay if I just like offer my opinion and about your choices? And I think that would be much kinder and probably lead to strengthen the relationship, and then lead to the outcomes that would be the best for you.
I feel really good about that.
Yeah, there's a verse in Job, I don't know where, because Job is very long and very repetitive, but Job's friends are like telling him like, just curse God and die, and then he says, miserable comforters are ye all. Because they're like telling him like what to do and how to feel, and telling someone how to feel or like how they should respond to a situation, like that's just not very productive. But getting people to talk and share so that we can understand, and then offering advice if they're okay with that.
I'm gonna start talking like that. Miserable comforter. You're trying to give me the thoughts on my life. You miserable comforter.
Miserable comforter.
Well, and I have friends that are actually really good at that too. I had a friend that went to lunch with me on Monday, and he's very in the church, and he's very solid. He and I serve very, very closely together in the church, and he and his wife don't understand my choices, but never critical at all. Just wants to listen. And might not say, congratulations, Robert, you're making a good choice, but I love you. And thank you for being willing to share with me. And I think that's what we can do. The group of friends that I talked about earlier, that's what we do for each other. Like sometimes things seem a little weird, right? Like, I'm not sure why you're making that choice, but thanks for being willing to tell me about it. And I'm here if you'd like to tell me more about it. And I love you.
Yeah. I think there's also something else that like, there's a beauty that comes from getting to know people, which like obviously like proximity, but
that's Zion.
Yeah, it is Zion. And I want to be the kind of person who does that and offers that to other people. And I remember actually it was Jeff Case. Like Ben was like, hey, I have this guy who I want on the podcast. And like, you told me a little bit about his bio. And I was like, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to like this person. I was like, I don't want somebody else telling me that I should marry a woman and that they're making it work so I can too. I'm like, I'm done with that. And I like put that on to him. And then he came and we recorded with him and he was amazing. I was like, you are like a gem. And so much so that like we had another episode. I'm like, it's gotta be Jeff, like get him back here. And I hate that I did that. Like I hate that I like judge people based on assumptions. And I especially don't like it because people do that to me all the time and it feels so horrible. Yeah. And I can't count how many people have been like, well, that Charlie Bird guy wrote a book about I'm single and celibate and you can be too. And I hate him for it. I'm like, okay, well, this just shows me that you did not read my book. Like, it like wasn't even like, it's not even what it's about at all. And like, I don't like when people let their assumptions impact how they view me and then lead to division. I hate that. It makes me really sad. And then I'm just like, man, I did that to Jeff Case, right? And so I just hope that I can recognize that. Like, how do you help me? How do you recognize that in yourselves and make sure that you're not doing that?
This is a really human thing to like.
It's so divisive.
Yeah, it's very normal to like put people in the categories, and if someone's in a category that might be like offensive to our category, like could be attacking of our category or not be congruent with our category that we might see ourselves in, it's just natural to like want to push them back and not accept them. That's just normal. And so I think when we see that happening, we're saying, well, this person makes me uncomfortable, therefore I'm not going to do that. One of the things I've tried to do is talk to people and be with people who are different and who have different opinions. Like, like tomorrow I'm going to dinner with that guy who wrote that article about us that was mean.
Yeah.
We don't have that in. But.
No, I think that's a beautiful thing to keep in, because it's true. Like, Ben, you're really good at that. Like, if someone has an issue with you or is like publicly rude to you, you're really good at like inviting them to lunch.
Yeah, it's like, let's chat. I want to understand your perspective.
Yeah, I'm bad at that. I'm like,
well, you're busy. You got cheer and everything.
But also, I'm probably more petty than you are. I'm trying really hard not to be.
I'm just 10 years older. I would have been petty at 28 too.
Well, people hurt my feelings, and then I'm like, you hurt my feelings. I don't want to be with you. I need to be better at
Well,
that.
usually people don't mean to hurt our feelings. And if they are hurting our feelings,
They're really good at it.
if they're hurting our feelings, then they're hurt in some way, and it's usually not about us.
I know.
So,
Well, there's something to glean from that for everyone. I'm more sensitive than Ben is.
I'm just older. I've been around longer. But to go back to your original question of how do
I notice when I'm doing to other people the very thing that hurts me so much when people do it to me?
just like being
Just notice.
Yeah, just notice it. I mean, you notice it by noticing it, and like maybe letting people give you feedback about it too.
That's hard.
It happens in such unfamiliar circumstances most of the time that it's hard to be ready in advance, right? You can't even know that you're doing it sometimes until you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can take feedback and you can also learn from it, it's good for the next time. But
Yeah.
I think it usually happens in unfamiliar circumstances. That's why we behave that way.
You know, it's another thing that I think kind of like relates to this is, and I'm again maybe guilty of doing this sometimes too. But when I'll share like where I'm at and where I've been with people, there's certain people that have a condescending approach, and they're like, oh, I remember when I was there too, and you're going to be exactly where I'm at in 2 years. And I'm just like, well, that's horribly invalidating and not helpful at all. And I kind of feel that with other people. And actually, that's something I feel like I'm good at checking in myself, or at least I'm trying to be aware of. Like, I don't want to make anybody else feel like where they're at is below where I'm at. But I think in this space, we do that a lot. It's like, oh, you're still in the church? Well, you just wait, And I'm just like, that's not bringing unity. That's not unifying this space that we all care about and belong to.
I think
I'm just going to start ranting.
Well, I think the two of you are great at asking questions, but I think especially when someone's come out and some things have gone well, right, that you want to share.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to start giving advice. The guy that had reached out to me to say, are you afraid that your marriage isn't going to make it? I was so excited for him that he'd had this experience and that he was able to move forward in this way. And I gave him loads of advice. And it wasn't until months later that I realized I had completely, I had judged incorrectly what he was even talking to me about. He was not on the same place on the queer spectrum that I am. And I just gave him all sorts of advice on what it's like to be a gay guy and what he can look forward to.
It wasn't helpful.
No, it wasn't. He was very kind. He didn't ever tell me it was dumb, but yeah, not helpful.
I love seeing themes though, because that kind of calls back to what you were saying earlier of like asking people rather than telling them. It's just good practice. I feel like if we all got really good at that, a lot of the chaos and division within the space would start healing. It feels really fractured right now.
If we try to see people. Well, did you listen to that forum at BYU with Amy Chua?
I actually didn't.
It was so good. It was about this,
I
just how people naturally divide. It's on. You can listen to it on YouTube or on the podcast.
Okay, I'll listen to Mom.
Yeah.
What was it about?
It's about divisions and just how we just naturally divide and how to heal divisions.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't need to summarize it. Everyone can just listen to it. I'm like the end of the elders quorum teacher who's like, well, we didn't really talk about the talk, so go home and read it.
Read
everybody.
the manual. So Robert, you're in a space now that looks nothing like you anticipated. where do you pull hope moving forward?
There's hope because I have people around me, and not even just my little gang of 8, right? But I have enough people around me who want to know about me, who want to, they say, this is completely foreign to me, but tell me, like, I want to know how I can help. And there seems to, I know I'm lucky. I don't know this is the same for lots of other people, but I have a constant stream of people who are, I'm here for you. And I don't even know what that looks like to be here for you, but I'm going to do it. And so, I don't know. I think I have a lot of hope because of the people around me, and I'm still very close to God. I spent a lot of my life trying to figure out how the Spirit speaks to me. I think I'm pretty good at that. And Heavenly Father is speaking to me through the Spirit as much as He ever has been.
Yeah, and that's actually something I noticed in you. We say a prayer before every episode, and you offered the prayer, and it was just so like profound and like real. It was very genuine. And so I don't know if this is like helpful coming from some 28-year-old kid, but I don't worry about you. I don't worry about you. I think you have support and you have faith, and I don't know. I can't wait to see what your life looks like.
Thank you.
And thank you for teaching us like the gift that genuine friendship can be, and like the gift of that kind of real connection, and the gift of like people honoring agency. You know, I'm so glad you have that, and I just hope that everyone can have that kind of those gifts in their life as well.
Ben, do you feel like you have it?
Yes, I do.
You better.
Stop.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing yourself. That's
Thanks
amazing.
for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this or other episodes, please consider leaving a review, following us on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook at Questions from the Closet, or sharing this episode with someone you love. And, as always, please remember that we do not represent the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Brigham Young University. We are not trying to be prescriptive or tell anyone what to think or what to do.
You heard 3 perspectives today, and there are many, many more. We encourage you to listen to other voices and hear a wide variety of experiences. If you would like to submit a question or share a comment about today's episode, you can email us at questionsfromthecloset@gmail.com. Until next time.